Welcome everybody to this video presentation of mine, Evidences of the 7-Year Tribulation, that it has begun. There's a lot of people who are doubting now. They're saying, well, we kind of thought maybe this was the covenant, the Trump peace deal in Gaza, and yet we see there's no real peace there, so they just sort of, nah, that can't be it. But, I think we need to take a closer look at a few of the things because Satan is a liar and the father of lies. And so, he's not going to be telling us the truth, is he? He's going to, he's going to be trying to camouflage it because he doesn't want anybody to know, what's really going on. But here, one of the first things that's going to happen is we're going to have the rider of the white horse. That's what Revelation says, the first seal of the 7 seals. And so we know that this guy comes riding white horse. He has a bow but no arrow, and he has a big victory, a crown of victory, and he goes forth conquering and to conquer. And I think this has already happened. Donald Trump in January 20th became the 45th, I think, President of the United States. He took his seat in the White House. And if you think he's a good guy, well, then take another look. Don't be deceived. But that's what I think is the start. And you might say, well, I don't want to watch this video because I like Trump. Well, watch a little bit and see what the scriptures are saying here. Trump signs Israel-Hamas peace plan. This was on October the 13th in Egypt, and 20 points. And Israel and Hamas have agreed to this. And you say whatever you want to say about it, it did stop the war, and they have ceased fire. And so this could very well be the covenant. Netanyahu wasn't actually there, but he had already agreed with Trump beforehand on this 20 points. So they signed it separately. And so this could very well be this covenant. And it's, you say, well, Trump doesn't fit that. Well, why not? I mean, all it has to be, Daniel 9:27 is they say, well, he has to be from Rome, has to be a Roman prince. Not necessarily, just have to be a Gentile, and that's what both those were. The Gentiles. Rome was the leading country at that time, and the Caesars. But now the United States is leading. So this could fit Trump, or else Trump could be just a negotiator, and there's somebody else behind the scene that we don't know about. But Trump seems to be making the covenant. There's a ceasefire. That's important. And, Trump made the announcement that this is eternal peace. And I think he's trying to win the Nobel Peace Prize, but didn't win it. But this looks pretty good. And but we know it's only going to last 3.5 years. But I think it's going to be a ceasefire for 3.5 years. World leaders signed this deal. Macron was there, and Carney from Canada, and all these Arab countries, Turkey, the leader of Turkey, and so these this could be the peace with the many, the covenant with the many. Looking back at the rider of the white horse, something interesting happened last year in London. They had these 4 horses. They bucked off their riders and they were running through the streets of London. And one of them had blood on it, this white horse. And people, even the press was saying it's an apocalyptic sign almost, and a very unusual thing. But 3 months later, Trump was nearly assassinated. He is running for the White House, and he's running against Kamala Harris, and he was nearly shot. In fact, it hit him on the right side, and his ear was bleeding. There was blood. So this could have identified him early as the rider of the white horse. How about the temple? People are saying no temple and no sacrifices, so we can't be in the tribulation yet. And yet, we have to realize that the temple, we only know that the sacrifices were stopped in the middle of the week. We don't know exactly when they started. They could have started 3 months before that. But 3.5 years into this 77 years, that's all we know. And also the temple, they can build that pretty quick. And we know it's there, though, because in the middle of the week, he sets up the abomination of desolation in the temple. But like I said, they could, it doesn't start the tribulation, this temple. What is the start, the beginning of the tribulation? Jesus says it. The beginning of the tribulation, all these are the beginning of the birth pangs. You see, birth pangs is what Jesus means by the tribulation. They're the same thing. It's like a woman having a child. And so as it starts and it begins and it builds and builds and builds until the woman eventually has, but the pain gets greater. So this is the beginning, Jesus says. What are the beginning? False Christ, the white horse rider, wars and rumors of wars. Well, that's coming. And that's, the red horse, famines, that's the black horse. And we know pestilence and earthquakes. That's the pestilence is the fourth horse. So these have started, like I said, with the ride of the white horse with Trump, January 20th. So like I said, we could already be in it, what Jesus is talking about here. Here's the other one, the red heifer sacrifice. It's funny how I was almost taken up by this too. And this red heifer sacrifice in Shilo happened July the 8th. And most people were saying, oh, it was just a trial run. And so it wasn't a real perfectly red heifer. And so it didn't count. And now I don't know who was saying that, the Temple Institute, but I think they were downplaying this so as one to not rile up the Arabs, Hamas, and which the war they were still in at that point, and the hostages, their lives were on the line. If they thought they were going to start building the temple, they would have executed them all. So they kept it kosher, they kept it down by saying this was just a practice run. But I believe they kept the ashes, and this is a legitimate red heifer because the leader, the guy who brought those, the Texan rancher who brought them, said it was a perfectly good red heifer. And in fact, it followed all the rules according to Numbers 19. Only the Mishnah said it had to be on the Mount of Olives, but here it was on Shilo. So this could have been a legitimate red heifer, and that's significant. Why the red heifer? Why is that important? Because in Daniel it says after 69 weeks. Notice here it says after 69 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off. We know that's Christ here at the cross. And in this picture here, somebody has put the Jerusalem temple destruction, because this is what they think. They think the 69th week ended with the destruction of the temple. But Daniel says after 69 weeks, Messiah will be cut off. So that's the stopping. From that time on, even at 70 AD, any time in the future could be the beginning of the 70th week. But, Israel had to be back in the land, and which they were in 1948. They also have to be in control of Jerusalem, which they have. They need to have some kind of a covenant so that they at least are allowed to do some things on the land, on the Mount of Olives, to do some sacrifices, which they're doing. And so this red heifer. So my thing is, I think the 70th week starts with the red heifer sacrifice. Now that happened on when? July the 8th. you see. And you say, well, no, it's the covenant with the Jews. Well, how long after? You know, 3 months later, we have this October 13th peace deal. So why? What are we saying? These can't be it. They're still in the same year. So I think this is all fitting together. So that's why we're actually in this time. And, just because the devil lies, and say, oh, this isn't the red heifer, you're going to believe him? He also said Jesus didn't, when the Pharisees were asking about Jesus, whether he was the Messiah, well, some of the Jews said, oh, he couldn't be because he was born up in the north in Nazareth. But, they didn't know he was born in Bethlehem because the devil's a liar and he's in darkness, so he doesn't know the truth. So just because they didn't think this was the red heifer doesn't mean it wasn't. Like I said, they were covering it up. So this is an important, significant thing that has happened, and we shouldn't pass it over, even as these other things I was mentioning. Now he says in Numbers 19, tell the Israelites to bring you a red heifer without defect or blemish, and that has never been a yoke. And this red heifer is a fulfillment of Christ. He is the red heifer without spot, and red is a symbol of sin, and so he became sin. He became a sin offering, and that's why he died for sins. And yet he was without defect. He's the spotless Lamb of God. And he was sacrificed outside of Jerusalem, just like it says this red heifer, somewhere outside. It doesn't just have to be Jesus died outside the city. Now this one they sacrificed in Shilo, it's outside Jerusalem. It's not in there. It doesn't have to be on the Mount of Olives. That's the Mishnah. So I legitimately believe this is a legitimate red heifer sacrifice, and they have the ashes. So they're getting ready for the temple, but they're doing it covertly because they didn't want Hamas to slaughter all the hostages. So, and it's never had a yoke under it, never under a yoke. Jesus is the Son of God. He is, he's not under law. He became under law as a man, but as God's Son, he's seated at the right hand in heaven. And I and the Father are one, he said. So it's, and he's the one that passed through the sacrifices. We'll look at this in the next slide. And here in Genesis, it says, God said to Abraham, bring me a 3-year-old heifer and a 3-year-old female goat, and a 3-year-old ram, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. Then he brought all these to him, and cut them in two, and laid each half opposed to the other. And but he did not cut the birds, and the birds of prey came and on and on. Here's this cutting off. It's a picture of the cutting off of the Messiah after 69 weeks. And you say, oh, I don't see that. Well, Jesus had a ministry. He was about 30 years old when he began his ministry, and he died. It was 33 when he died, and you say, well, and 33, and you have a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old female goat, and a 3-year-old ram. God uses these numbers, and so, and it was Christ that died on the cross. He passed through. He, as the second person of the Trinity, the Son of God. God passed through this sacrifice. Abraham didn't do nothing. Abraham sat around, and I guess he did try to drive away some of the birds, but it's not of works. And so God does it. God made the covenant with Abraham, and he fulfilled it in his Son when he died on the cross to sanctify us. And so the cross of Christ is a picture. It ended after 69 weeks, after Messiah's cut off. So the 70th week, I think, starts with the red heifer. And this is, you say, well, why would he do that? He's already died on the cross, because Israel didn't accept him. And so they rejected the Messiah. But it doesn't mean God isn't going to be faithful to his promise to Abraham and his seed. And so he's going to do it. And so when's he going to do it? In the 70th week, after Israel's back in the land. And this is what we're seeing right now, I think. And this is the start of it. So God is about to fulfill his covenant. And so pretty interesting. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you've trusted Jesus as your Savior. God bless.